And now it's Boomer Life. Lifestyle ideas designed to make your life more engaging, meaningful, and complete. Celebrating the baby boomer generation, this is Boomer Life.
Good evening and welcome to Boomer Life on AM 650. I'm Simone Graywall. On Boomer Life today, we're talking about addiction. If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction or dependency issues, we have in studio today people who can help. In studio with us is Jason Spees, the Executive Director and Interventionist at LDR Holistic Wellness Center, as well as John Patterson, who is the Human Relations Director. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Now, Jason, tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, my background starts from, I'm just going to basically go into the reason why I'm sitting here today, is that I grew up in a family where addiction was very prevalent and unfortunately suffered under the hands of that throughout my childhood. And throughout the course of, growing up, unfortunately, I also succumbed to addiction in my journeys. And so the reason why I'm talking about that is because I think it's very valid to talk about my own past in relation to the reason why we're sitting here today. And that is that I grew up, as I think many do, and especially in my years of experience, learning that many people come to us with this sort of background, feeling completely isolated or alone, or a lot of people feeling not worthy. And I think that many of us don't know how to really cope or deal with that. And I certainly was one of those people as well. And I naturally fell into addiction. And I say naturally because I think I was really already built to be an alcoholic long before I even took a drink. So a little bit about my past in relations to alcoholism. Unfortunately, it took me down a very windy road where, in the beginning it was very seductive and it offered a lot of promises. I felt very euphoric and in control, and I was finally able to be what I felt the person that I could be, as a social lubricant, and I just felt automatically like I could relate with people. And I think this is one of the reasons why I've discovered this work, is because I haven't lost that connection to who I used to be, and in some ways still am. But my alcoholism then, as I moved on to the progressiveness of it, I started to sacrifice a lot of who I was. And it became a very large part of my life where essentially everything that I did was driven towards alcohol, whether it was camping or events or social activities, or and then obviously at the end of it, it was pretty much 24 hours, 7 days a week what I was invested in, because it was all I really knew. It was a solution that I found that unfortunately ended up not being a solution at the end. So as I discovered this, I now was so far behind the lines of addiction that I didn't know how to get out. It almost seemed impossible for me, and I really struggled with trying to find a path. And I thought, now, I'm labeled this, or this is who I've become, and I really don't know how to become a functional member of society.
So how did what changed in your life? When did that kind of switch to you going to actually seek out that help? What happened?
A lot of really what I like to call today is powerful lessons. Back then they were very, I was very confused and lost and hopeless in a lot of ways. I knew that I had this feeling of disconnect with all of society, but really the moment of transformation was when I truly recognized that everything that I was doing was resulting in the lifestyle that I was living, and I didn't have the answers anymore. Thankfully, I didn't have the answers anymore, and so I reached out for help, and thankfully I was able to find a pathway to recovery. So.
Now, John, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Thanks, Simone. So like Jason, I also have a background in addiction. Pretty short one, actually. I drank for 8 years. I started at 13 and had my last drink the day before my 21st birthday. But, I didn't need more time to understand the inevitable trajectory that my life path was taking me on. Like Jason, when I had my first drink, I thought it was the most amazing thing that I had ever experienced in my life. All of my fear, my insecurity, my nervousness, the knot in my stomach, it all magically went away.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I actually remember driving home and on my bicycle, and I crashed, and I cut open my hand, and I was looking at my hand, and there was blood on it, and there was no pain. And I thought, wow, this is the most amazing thing to me, it was just like finding the miracle.
It just masked everything.
Oh, it eliminated all my fear and replaced it with a sense of inevitable confidence that just made me believe I could accomplish anything. And it was that fantasy that I tried to permanently harness, bottle, consume, so that every single time I ran into the difficulties of life, I had this solution. The problem was it was incapable of delivering on the promise. And like Jason, in a very short period of time, what started out as this amazing solution started to have a whole bunch of increasingly painful, frustrating consequences, the crashed cars, the lying at work, the relationship problems. I dropped out of school after grade 9 because I couldn't function in that world anymore. Trying to pay the rent, I would live on the roofs of buildings, even though I was holding down a full-time job because I had to make sure I had enough money to drink.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was 17, 18 years old. By the time I turned the corner and came into recovery, I believe two things about myself. One, that I was probably insane. And two, that at this point, my only real goal in life was to die painlessly. If I could have found a way, I believed that I was a piece of human garbage and I would be doing the world a favor if I simply stepped off the planet.
Wow.
And so from that place of bankruptcy, it was as though being broken into 1,000 pieces and being held together by nothing other than despair. And I reached out, and fortunately there was a community of people who completely understood the nature of this terrible dilemma that I was caught in, that my solution, which I desperately needed in order to at least be able to maintain a facade of social normalcy, ended up creating this cascading series of disasters. And so I was damned if I did and damned if I didn't. And that was the hitting bottom.
Exactly. If you're just joining us on Boomer Life, in studio with us is Jason Spies, who's the Executive Director and Interventionist at LDR Holistic Wellness Center, as well as John Patterson, who is the Human Relations Director. And we are talking about those struggling with addiction or dependency issues, and both of you can help. Now, hearing about your background in this, tell us a little bit about LDR Holistic Addiction Wellness Center, where you're both from.
Oh, thank you, Simone. So LDR Holistic Addiction Wellness Center was created for a number of reasons. First, when we really looked at what was offered in the industry, we began to recognize that there was an area that we really wanted to approach. That was that we wanted to create a facility that had intimacy and safety at mind. We really wanted to connect with the individuals that were seeking services. And so we've created a small 12-bed men's-only facility engineered specifically with them in mind. And, I like to say that because services need to be flexible for the individual, and really adaptable is a key component to the success of our holistic model. So the services we offer are kind of broken into three major areas, if you will. And so we have the Conroy Drug and Alcohol Treatment Program that's designed for men. It's a residential treatment facility where people will come generally for a stay of 60 days, where they'll undertake a number of different activities from one-on-one counseling to group therapy, a ton of educational resources, and so it's a community where we really start to build on a treatment plan, helping an individual to start really overcoming a lot of the obstacles, perhaps self-identity or codependency, a number of probably self-esteem issues. Addiction is really an amazing platform to work in, because I've never worked with one individual that presents the same. Too often we have this kind of picture around what an addict is, and I think that is really unfortunate, because many people can't see it then for what it is. So that's our drug rehab treatment program. The next section, if you will, is our intervention services that are offered all over Canada as well as the United States. And we actually physically go into the family system, whether they're in Calgary or Ontario, and do an amazing educational component, helping them to really understand what addiction is and how they can start changing their way of coping with it. And I could get into more in later segments of these shows, but in which we plan to. And then thirdly, we have amazing outpatient services that maybe, John, if you don't mind talking a little bit about.
Well, the outpatient services, one of the things that we recognize is that putting the plug in the jug, so to speak, is only the beginning of the process. The drinking and the drugging aren't really the problem.
It stemmed from somewhere else.
It stems from somewhere else. And unless we can find a way to help people understand what are the things that are going on inside of them that have seeking an outside solution as being the strategy to choose. And so they come in realizing, well, this particular strategy clearly hasn't worked for me. I wonder if I can come up with a better strategy. But the deeper truth is, any attempt to find an outside solution to an inside problem is by definition impossible.
Yeah.
So what we do through the outpatient process, and it's begun within the 60-day inpatient process, is to begin to explore what are the things that are going on inside of you that you are attempting to compensate for by things outside of you. And if we can help you access the resources within you to begin to satisfy some of those elements, whether it's a sense of confidence or a sense of worth or a sense of belonging or a sense of connection, I mean, that's what we're seeking as human beings.
Now, are most people receptive to this? Do some people know what the root of their problem is right off the top, and they kind of know they're using alcohol and drugs to mask it? Or sometimes it's just so deep-rooted that it takes time to actually pull it out of them?
Well, it's a great question, and there really isn't a padded answer for that. We have people coming to us at all different stages of awareness. Our outpatient services are designed specifically with that in mind, is that we've got professional drug and alcohol counseling services to start working with, even what we want to call the family structure, helping them to recognize how to even approach somebody with an addiction. So we can start all the way from back there to working with the individual who understands they have an issue or dependency, and they want to start speaking to that through drug and alcohol counseling or educational components of our outpatient services. So there's no real answer to it other than to say that there's a lot of people out there struggling, not understanding why they continue to have these consequences in their life. And what I say to you right now is that if you're out there wondering if this is something that's going on in your life, LDR is positioned itself to be really accessible and to start having those conversations and engage in that so that we can start maybe identifying what it is.
Now, if you want more information, holisticdrugrehab.org is the website, and you're listening to Boomer Life on AM 650. My name is Simone Graywell. Today we are talking about addiction. If you or someone you know is struggling with addiction or dependency issues, we have in studio with us these gentlemen who can help. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the stages of dependency as well as myths about addiction. So stay with us right here on AM 650.
Canada's only weekly radio show dedicated to the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on AM 650.